In July 2024, after years of regulatory scrutiny, European aviation authorities issued a type certificate for an aircraft that looked almost identical to one airlines had already been flying for over a decade. No new fuselage, no twin aisles, no clean sheet design, no dramatic silhouette like the 747, the A380, the 777X, or the A350. To passengers boarding it, the cabin would feel familiar. 6 seats across, a single aisle stretching toward the back, overhead bins, the same basic geometry millions of passengers experience every day on short flights between European capitals or American cities. Yet, this ordinary-looking aircraft, the Airbus A321XLR, would go on to secure over 500 orders before its first delivery and leave Boeing without a credible answer for a market segment worth hundreds of billions of dollars. For decades, the aviation industry has accepted that long-haul flying requires widebodies, twin aisles, 2 engines mounted on broad-swept wings, carrying enough fuel to cross oceans with hundreds of passengers in the back. Geography and physics always won. Narrowbodies flew short, widebodies flew far. In November 2024, Iberia inaugurated commercial A321XLR service from Madrid to Boston, a single-aisle aircraft crossing the Atlantic with 182 passengers, including lie-flat business class. By mid-2026, Indigo, Air Canada, American Airlines, and Saudia had all taken delivery, with United and others waiting in line. The A321XLR carries fewer passengers than a widebody. It has less cargo capacity. It offers less cabin space. It cannot match the comfort of an A330, a 787, or an A350 on an 8-hour flight. By every traditional metric airlines use to evaluate long-haul aircraft, the A321XLR appears inferior. Yet, Boeing has no equivalent. Airlines that build empires on hub connections are watching non-stop routes bypass them entirely. The A321XLR looks ordinary. That is exactly what makes it dangerous. So, how can a narrowbody threaten an entire category of wide-body aircraft? To understand why Airbus is reshaping long-haul aviation with what is essentially an evolved A321, we need to understand why this aircraft was considered impossible for so long. The constraint was physics. A single-aisle aircraft is not shaped for long-distance flights. It cannot carry the fuel required to do so. It lacks the cargo capacity that subsidizes many long-haul routes. The math seemed permanent. Aircraft that could fly far couldn't fly economically with few passengers. Aircraft that flew economically with fewer passengers couldn't fly far. The trade-off appeared locked in. The industry adapted by building hub-and-spoke networks. Passengers from secondary cities flowed through London Heathrow, Paris Charles de Gaulle, Frankfurt, Amsterdam, Madrid, Chicago O'Hare, Dubai, and Doha. These hubs aggregated demand from dozens of smaller markets into single wide-body flights. The model worked. Emirates built an empire on Dubai connections. Lufthansa funneled European traffic through Frankfurt and Munich. Delta and United structured their entire long-haul networks around domestic feeder traffic into a handful of gateway airports. But the model created an enormous gap. Thin, long-haul routes, city pairs with enough demand to justify non-stop service, but not enough demand to fill a 250 to 300-seat widebody profitably. Manchester to secondary American cities, Madrid to smaller Latin American markets, Indian cities to Eastern Europe, Gulf cities to African capitals. These routes existed only in theory, seasonally, or with substantial subsidies. Airlines couldn't justify the wide-body risk. Passengers were forced to connect. One aircraft once filled part of this gap, the Boeing 757, with serious range and hot and high performance. After initially misusing it, airlines used it for transatlantic flying or long transcontinental routes. It was the perfect single-aisle long-haul tool. But the 757 went out of production in 2004. Boeing never built a direct replacement. The 737 MAX family, even the MAX 10, lacks the range and payload to match what the 757 could do. The 787 was too large and too expensive for most 757 missions. Boeing studied a new mid-size airplane for years and never launched it. Boeing left the 757 gap open. Airbus walked into it with the A321XLR. The A321XLR didn't appear suddenly. It evolved through deliberate, incremental steps that Boeing largely dismissed as marginal improvements to an existing design. First came the A321neo with new geared turbofan engines, offering significant fuel burn improvements. Then, the A321LR, adding auxiliary fuel tanks and pushing range further. Then, the A321XLR, the longest range member of the A320neo family, with a maximum range of approximately 4,700 nautical miles, or roughly 8,700 kilometers. The aircraft uses an all-new rear center tank, integrated directly into the fuselage structure beneath the cabin floor. Combined with structural reinforcements, it pushes the A321 platform into territory previously reserved for widebodies. The XLR takes the aircraft airlines already use every day and stretches its usefulness across oceans. That range opens routes that previously required widebodies or didn't exist at all. Western Europe to the United States East Coast, Madrid to North America, Dublin and Manchester to secondary American cities, India to parts of Europe, the Gulf to Europe, Africa, and parts of Asia, Southeast Asia to Australia. Thin, transcontinental routes in the US. It is a narrowbody with genuine long-haul reach. But before committing billions to this concept, Airbus had to prove the aircraft could actually deliver. The certification process took longer than originally hoped. Regulators in both Europe and the United States scrutinized the rear center fuel tank design immediately. Their concern was fire safety. Unlike traditional auxiliary tanks that sit removably inside cargo holds, the rear center tank is integrated into the fuselage structure. A gear failure or runway excursion could potentially expose the tank. Airbus was forced to implement heavy structural reinforcements and a Kevlar lining. This added unexpected weight. Industry estimates suggest this weight reduction cost the aircraft between 200 and 500 nautical miles of effective range, pushing real-world maximum range closer to 42 to 4,500 nautical miles, depending on conditions. For years, the A321XLR was a promise. Now it is a product. The significance of the A321XLR is about what a single-aisle aircraft can do to an entire industry's assumptions about risk. You see, widebodies are expensive bets. When an airline launches a new route with a 787, an A330, or an A350, it commits to filling roughly 250 to 350 seats every single flight. If demand disappoints, losses can be enormous. The aircraft requires more premium demand. It needs cargo and connecting traffic to work well. It demands marketing investment, ground infrastructure, and crew commitment. Many promising routes never launch because the widebody math doesn't work. Demand might support 150 passengers daily, but not 280. So, airlines either connect those passengers through hubs or abandon the route entirely. The A321XLR changes this calculation completely. With fewer seats, lower trip cost, and dramatically lower capital exposure, it lets airlines test markets that widebodies couldn't justify, serve thin routes without flooding them with seats. The A321XLR is not unbeatable because it can fly the farthest. It is unbeatable because it makes airlines less afraid to try. This is the real innovation. It transforms route planning from a high-stakes gamble into something closer to experimentation. Start with an XLR, build the market, upgrade to a 787 or A350 if demand grows, or keep the XLR if the route remains profitable at narrowbody scale. The A321XLR is not just an aircraft, it is a permission slip for route planners. There is another dimension that makes the A321XLR particularly dangerous to wide-body competitors. It belongs to the A320neo family. For airlines already operating A320s and A321s, adding the XLR doesn't require building new operational infrastructure. Pilots can transition with minimal additional training. Maintenance teams already have the parts, the tools, and the procedures. Spare engines and components already sit in inventory across global networks. This commonality advantage is almost impossible to overstate. Introducing a new widebody type can require enormous investment in training, certification, parts inventory, gate infrastructure, and disruption recovery planning. The A321XLR sidesteps all of it. The A321XLR's superpower is not range, it is familiarity. Widebodies require a different operational ecosystem: wide-body crews, wide-body maintenance bays, larger gates with dual jet bridges, more cargo infrastructure, different spare parts inventories, more complex disruption recovery when a flight cancellation strands hundreds of passengers. The A321XLR keeps airlines close to narrowbody simplicity. It uses existing narrowbody gates. It fits into existing A320 family fleets. It can even be rotated through shorter routes when needed, though its extra weight means airlines will use it carefully. A widebody route failure can become a crisis. An A321XLR route failure is much easier to redeploy. Nowhere is this transformation more visible than across the North Atlantic. Iberia became the launch operator in November 2024, configuring its A321XLR with 182 seats in a two-class layout, including lie-flat business seats with direct aisle access. Iberia has described the aircraft as allowing transoceanic routes with a single aisle, while offering a premium service similar to its A330 or A350. American Airlines began commercial A321XLR service in December 2025. Its first deployment was actually JFK to Los Angeles, with a configuration including 20 lie-flat flagship suite business class seats, 12 premium economy seats, and 123 economy seats. Beyond a handful more transcontinental domestic routes, American Airlines also launched flights from JFK to Edinburgh with the A321XLR. Air Canada took delivery of its first A321XLR in Hamburg in April 2026, with a fleet plan covering 30 aircraft. The airline announced new transatlantic services from Montreal and Toronto to destinations including Berlin, Toulouse, Nantes, and others. Its glowing-hearted cabin features 14 signature-class lie-flat seats in a 1-1 configuration with direct aisle access. Saudia became the first Middle East operator in May 2026, configuring its aircraft with 24 business class and 120 economy seats. The airline plans to deploy the XLR on routes from Jeddah. Indigo received its first A321XLR in early 2026 as part of a much larger A320 family order. The Indian low-cost carrier plans to use the aircraft on long-haul missions, including Delhi and Mumbai to Athens, extending its reach into Europe. The A321XLR turns the Atlantic from a wide-body market into a route-by-route chessboard. Traditional long-haul networks depend on hubs aggregating demand. The X321XLR allows more non-stop bypass routes. A smaller European city might get non-stop North America service. A US secondary city might get non-stop Europe service. A leisure destination might bypass the normal connecting hub entirely. The A321XLR does not kill hubs. It steals the routes that hubs used to make necessary. For network airlines, the XLR opens thin, long-haul markets, adds frequency on existing routes, replaces aging 757s and smaller widebodies, supports secondary hubs, and serves long routes without excess capacity. For low-cost airlines, it creates a path into long-haul without buying widebodies, enables thinner leisure routes, and extends the short-haul low-cost model further into intercontinental flying. But low-cost long-haul remains difficult. The A321XLR helps. It does not magically solve seasonality, fuel price volatility, crew costs, passenger comfort expectations, or premium revenue limitations. The A321XLR makes long-haul easier. It does not make long-haul easy. Boeing's situation is particularly difficult. Boeing has no true A321XLR equivalent. The 737 MAX 10, even once certified, is fundamentally a high-capacity, short to medium-haul aircraft. The MAX 8 and MAX 9 cannot match the XLR's range and payload combination. The 787 is too large and too expensive for most XLR missions. Boeing's proposed new midsize airplane has been indefinitely delayed and has produced no tangible product. The 757 is aging out of fleets globally. Boeing's narrowbody response to the A320neo family has been the 737 MAX family, but Boeing targeted certification of the MAX 7 and MAX 10 in 2026, but neither variant has entered service. The A321XLR is not just beating Boeing aircraft, it is beating the Boeing aircraft that does not exist. A new clean-sheet middle-market aircraft would take many years and billions of dollars to develop. Boeing is currently dealing with 737 MAX certification variants, production recovery, 787 and 777X priorities, intense regulatory scrutiny, and significant balance sheet pressure, including a long-term debt burden of more than $47 billion. Even if Boeing launched a perfect middle-market aircraft tomorrow, it would arrive years after the A321XLR. Airbus has already captured early customers and locked in production slots. Airbus is selling an aircraft today. Boeing can only sell the idea of an answer tomorrow. Airbus won this segment before the first delivery because it identified the market early. It saw airlines wanted a 757 replacement, thin long-haul capability, lower-risk route launches, and narrowbody commonality. Without wide-body cost, it didn't need a clean-sheet aircraft, it just kept improving the A321. Airbus did not beat Boeing by inventing a new category. It beat Boeing by understanding the category Boeing abandoned. The A321XLR is not perfect. The story has real complications. Passenger comfort is the obvious weakness. The aircraft is still a single-aisle narrowbody. Some passengers will not love flying 7 to 9 hours in a tube without twin aisles, spacious cabins, multiple lavatories, or gallery flexibility. Cabin density will define perception. Airlines can make the A321XLR feel premium or miserable. Iberia and Air Canada have configured premium-heavy layouts that feel like boutique long-haul products. Wizz Air, by contrast, configures its A321XLR with 239 non-reclining seats, with passengers in most rows squeezed into 28 inches of pitch with no in-flight entertainment. The A321XLR can do long-haul. The question is whether passengers want to feel like they are on short-haul for 8 hours. Cargo is another limitation. The A321XLR is brilliant when passengers are the business. It's less brilliant when cargo is the profit. Payload range trade-offs are real. Published maximum range is not the same as every route with every payload. Headwinds, weather, airport performance, seating configuration, and reserves all affect actual capacity. The A321XLR can stretch the narrowbody. It cannot repeal physics. These limitations have produced real commercial pushback. In August 2024, Frontier Airlines outright cancelled its order for 18 A321XLRs, citing operational performance and range that did not match expectations. American Airlines trimmed its order from 50 down to 40 aircraft. Crew experience matters too. Flight attendants have criticized the cramped alley and the lack of dedicated crew rest bunks, with airlines instead blocking off 3 economy seats at the rear, separated only by a fabric curtain. The A321XLR is not unbeatable forever. Eventually, Boeing could respond. Widebody economics could improve. Future blended wing designs or next-generation single aisles could change the game. But right now, the A321XLR sits in a nearly uncontested niche. It is the only aircraft offering this exact combination of range, capacity, cost, commonality, and availability. No aircraft is unbeatable forever, but right now, the A321XLR is alone in the part of the market everyone suddenly wants. The A321XLR doesn't replace the widebody. The 787, A330, and A350 will continue serving the majority of long-haul demand. The great connecting hubs will continue serving the majority of intercontinental travelers. But the A321XLR creates something new. A demonstration that for certain routes, for certain passengers, narrowbody economics combined with long-haul reach create value that widebodies cannot match. The A321XLR lets airlines stop asking, "Can we fill a widebody?" and start asking, "Can we make a non-stop work?" By evolving an existing platform, rather than launching a clean sheet design, Airbus delivered an aircraft that airlines could absorb without operational disruption. By focusing on the abandoned 757 gap, rather than chasing widebody competition, Airbus identified a market with no credible rival. By prioritizing commonality and risk reduction over raw performance, Airbus solved problems airlines actually had, rather than problems engineers found interesting. The A321XLR is not the most spectacular aircraft Airbus has ever built. It may be something more valuable, the aircraft airlines actually needed.